Hello, fellow and future Lord of the Rings fans. Welcome to my series of scenes that just hit different when you know the backstory. Today, we're going to be talking about the Ring of Barahir. Grab your Bible and let's get started. So, the journey of the Ring of Barahir begun with Finrod Felagund, who was a Noldor elf. His grandfather, Finwë, was the first bearer of this ring. The ring itself was created by the unnamed smiths of Valinor during the Year of the Trees, and they bestowed it upon Finwë when he became the very first king of the Noldor. And in Tolkien's universe, this would mean that the Ring of Barahir is literally older than the sun. After the kinslaying, the Noldor were exiled from Valinor, and Finrod brought this ring with him to Middle-earth. Finrod was the very first elf to come across men in Middle-earth, and he became very close with them and actually coexisted with them for a long time. During this time, he formed a very close friendship with a human woman named Andreth of House Beor. House of Beor is the oldest of the three houses of men, and they consisted of the Edain, who fought side by side with the elves during the War for the Great Jewels. Among these men was Andreth's nephew, Barahir. During this war, Finrod and his army were trapped and ambushed by orcs, and Finrod literally would have died had it not been for Barahir and his men coming to his rescue. So, as a symbol of gratitude and friendship, Finrod gave Barahir his ring and swore an oath to come to the aid of Barahir and his kin if they ever called for it. Now, Barahir was bad. He was such a fierce foe to the servants of Morgoth, even though he was a man, that Sauron had to order one of his biggest, baddest orc captains, who was known as the Butcher, to take out Barahir and bring the ring back as a token of completion. Tragically, the Butcher did succeed in killing Barahir, but as he was gloating over Barahir's body, Barahir's son, Beren, came out of the woods and completely annihilated the Butcher and then took his father's ring back. Slaying the Butcher put a very high price on Beren's head, so he fled his homelands and wandered through many forests until he eventually stumbled upon the elf maiden Luthien, who was the princess of the Sindar, who were otherwise known as the Elves of Twilight. Now, Beren fell in love with Luthien immediately, but her father wouldn't even acknowledge Beren until he showed him the Ring of Barahir and proved that he wasn't just any man. But even then, King Thingol was repulsed. So King Thingol, thinking he was being clever, told Beren that he could not marry Luthien until he brought back a jewel from the crown of the Dark Lord. And if you know, you know, but if you don't, I'm not referring to Sauron when I say the Dark Lord, I'm referring to Sauron's boss. This is an impossible task. This dude has a whole army of Balrogs. Beren laughed in his face, and he said, "For a little price do elven kings sell their daughters." Sir! So finally, Beren called upon Finrod. He took him up on his offer to aid him, and Finrod did. He literally put down his kingship and he went on this quest to help Beren retrieve a gem from the Dark Lord's crown. And sadly, he lost his life to this quest. Finrod's death was extremely tragic. However, because he redeemed his people so massively in that moment and in such a self sacrificial way, he was actually permitted to re-embody in Valinor, making him the first ever of the Noldor exiles to be able to return to Valinor, which is so sweet. Beren eventually passed the ring on to his son, and the tradition continued, making it a precious heirloom of lords, including kings of Numenor. Many generations later, the ring was almost lost to the same shipwreck that took the Palantiri of the North. And I think it's important to note that the Ring of Barahir did not die with its bearer on that ship because it had just been passed on to another person as a symbol of friendship and gratitude. The elves were able to eventually trace its location and retrieve it, and they kept it safe in Rivendell until Elrond gave it to Aragorn, along with the shards of Narsil. Aragorn wore the ring until giving it to Arwen on their wedding day, continuing the pattern of passing the ring off as a symbol of love. When Arwen and Aragorn's son ascends to the throne, it's not explicitly said that he also inherits the Ring of Barahir. He does inherit many tokens of kingship, including the crown of Gondor, but it's not actually known if he also inherited the ring. It makes sense to me that she would pass the ring on to their son because it has only ever been passed down through love and gratitude. It also makes sense to me that she would have taken it to her grave. And the reason I say that is because, in the same way that the One Ring symbolizes Sauron and the Dark Lord and that malice, I believe that the Ring of Barahir symbolizes the opposite of that. The One Ring is coveted, and people don't want to give it up. They want to keep it for themselves, for power, for greed, for very selfish purposes. But with the Ring of Barahir, it is always willingly given to the next bearer, and it always comes from a place of love. So, whether Tolkien intended for it to be symbolic in this way, it does make sense to me that by the time Sauron's One Ring is destroyed, out of a place of hatred at that, it would make a lot of sense to me that the Ring of Barahir also comes full circle and goes to the grave with Arwen, but from a place of love. But whether it went to the grave with Arwen or continued to get passed down to their children and grandchildren and what have you, I just think the Ring of Barahir is such an unsung symbol of the hero. And it's so cool that we have the hero and the anti-hero and each have their actual symbols that are rings. It doesn't get enough credit in the films, and I think it just hits so, so different when Grima's pointing out the ring detail to Saruman when you know the backstory of this incredible artifact. It's literally the oldest piece of jewelry in all of Middle Earth. Like, it's so cool.